They say they care. They say they've got your back. But deep down, something feels off. You give, you help, you listen. But when you need something, they disappear. They're warm in words, cold in actions, and yet you keep making excuses for them. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe I'm overthinking. Number, you're not crazy. You're being used by someone who's mastered the art of pretending to care. These people don't show their fangs. They wear a smile. They fake concern. They play nice. But behind every compliment, every hug, every "I'm here for you," there's a selfish motive. So here it is. Signs they're using you while acting like they care. This will sting, but you need to hear it. Because you deserve genuine care, not calculated kindness. By the way, if you've been loving the content here, I've got something new for you. I just launched a new channel where I'll be posting daily affirmations and powerful quotes to help you stay focused, inspired, and grounded every single day. If you want to start your mornings with purpose and clarity, click the link in the description or the pinned comment and subscribe now. Let's build an unshakable mind, one day at a time. Your next level starts here. 1. They only reach out when they need something. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. Some people don't actually miss you. They miss your usefulness. They don't crave your presence. They crave what your presence provides. I used to have this friend. Let's call him Leo. We were close, or at least I thought we were. He'd disappear for weeks, sometimes months. No messages, no check-ins, no birthday wishes, nothing. But every time something went wrong in his life, like clockwork, I'd get a message. "Hey man, do you know anyone hiring right now? Bro, can I crash at your place for a bit? Hey, can you help me edit my resume real quick?" At first, I helped. I thought this is what friends do, and that's how users hook you, by making you believe your worth is tied to your willingness to say yes. But it started eating at me. I'd text him just to say what's up, no reply. I'd send him good news, nothing. I went through a rough breakup. He knew, he watched, he said nothing. But the moment his car broke down, "Hey man, can you come pick me up?" I remember sitting in my room, phone in hand, reading that message. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a friend. I felt like a damn tool. That's what users do. They treat you like a vending machine for favors. Push a button, get a ride. Push another, get emotional support. But they never pay. They never refill. They never say, "How are you doing?" And here's the dark part. They don't even feel guilty. They think, that's just who he is. He always helps. That's what makes him a good person. Number, that's what made me a target. Because people who always say yes become magnets for manipulators. The more available you are, the more they vanish when you're in need. They start to see your kindness as a resource to extract, not a quality to respect. And the world will gaslight you for it. You're overreacting. Maybe he's just going through a lot. Be the bigger person. Number, I was the bigger person for years, and that's why I was constantly left to pick up my own pieces when I was breaking. Because people who only show up when it benefits them are not friends. They are opportunists wearing empathy as camouflage. Here's the bitter truth no one wants to admit. Just because someone comes back into your life doesn't mean they care. Sometimes they come back because the last person they used finally cut them off. And you're next on their list. You need to ask yourself one brutal question. When was the last time this person did something for you without needing something in return? And if you can't remember, that's your answer. Don't keep people in your life out of guilt, nostalgia, or some moral obligation to be nice. Being kind doesn't mean being used. Being helpful doesn't mean being disposable. You don't owe anyone your energy just because they know how to ask for it at the right time. Some people only show up when they're hungry. They'll take your food, your time, your spirit, and vanish once they're full, until they get hungry again. And the worst part? They'll call it friendship. They'll say they care. They'll post quotes about loyalty and brotherhood. But when the table's empty, when you've got nothing left to offer, they're gone. So be honest with yourself. Not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. Some people just see you as a free resource, and the day you stop giving is the day they stop caring. It's not your job to constantly pour into people who don't even offer a drop in return. Start matching effort. Start saying no. Because the moment you stop being useful to the wrong people, you'll finally start being valued by the right ones. 2, they make you feel like you owe them. This one's tricky because it's subtle. They don't come out and say you owe them, they just make you feel like it. And that's what makes it so manipulative. I once knew someone, let's call her Maya. Charming, generous, always offering help. She paid for lunches, drove me around, even bought me a birthday gift that was way too expensive. At first I thought, wow, she's such a caring friend. But the favors started to change. Suddenly, every time I said no to something, she'd throw those good deeds back in my face. I just thought, after everything I've done for you, you'd have my back on this. Or my personal favorite. Wow, I guess helping you that day meant nothing. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever done something for someone with no expectations, but they treat every good thing they do like you now owe them your loyalty, time, money, and silence? That's not kindness. That's emotional debt trapping, and it's poison. People like this will give you just enough to make you feel indebted, then use that guilt to control you. They'll say, I was there when you needed me, as a way to silence you when they're being disrespectful. They'll remind you of what they did in 2021. Every time you ask for space, they act like a good deed is a lifetime membership to your time and energy. And here's where it gets controversial. Not every favor is pure. Some people help you just to own a piece of you. They give with strings attached, invisible ones. But they're there, tied around your neck. And the second you push back, you start choking on guilt. I'll never forget when I told Maya I couldn't help her move. I had a deadline. I was buried in stress. I explained this kindly. She went silent for a second, then said, well, okay. I just thought our friendship meant more. And then she unfollowed me. That's when I realized the friendship wasn't friendship. It was a silent transaction. I thought she cared about me. Turns out she cared about the debt, the emotional leverage. She was running a loyalty bank, deposit after deposit. And the moment I didn't pay interest, she cut the connection. This happens all the time. And not just with friends. Family, partners, co-workers, they do this too. They'll say things like, but I raised you. I gave you that opportunity. I stood by you when no one else did. And sure, those things might be true. But here's the truth no one says out loud. Love isn't leverage. Care isn't currency. If someone gives with the intention to collect later, it's not generosity. It's manipulation in disguise. Real love doesn't make you feel small when you can't give back. Real friends don't hand you kindness with a receipt. And real support isn't a contract. So how do you spot these people? Easy. Say no, just once. Just politely say, I can't, and watch their reaction. If they flip the switch, if they go cold, distant, guilt-tripping, or passive-aggressive, that kindness was never unconditional. You were being groomed to be obedient, not appreciated. You are not a debt to be collected. You're not selfish for protecting your peace. And you don't owe anyone eternal loyalty just because they did something nice for you 3 years ago. Some people treat generosity like bait. They dangle it, wait for you to bite, then reel you in, hook first, and demand your loyalty while bleeding you dry. You want to know if someone's truly kind? Look at how they act when you say no, because that's when the truth comes out. Kindness without conditions is rare, but it exists. And the more you say no to manipulators, the more room you create for people who don't need to trap you to love you. 3, they're never there when you need help. There's a special kind of heartbreak that comes not from betrayal, but from silence. From the people who are supposed to show up, but don't. The ones who promised they'd be there. The ones who said, anything you need, I got you. But the moment you're drowning, they disappear like smoke. Let me get personal. There was a time I hit rock bottom. No dramatic accident, no big tragedy, just life quietly falling apart. My rent was due. I had no job. I was battling insomnia. And I hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. The walls felt like they were closing in. So I did something I never do. I asked for help. I sent 3 texts to 3 people I thought would show up. People I had bent over backward for in the past. Listened to their late-night breakdowns. Helped them move. Covered bills. Defended them. Sacrificed time and sleep. Guess what I got back? Damn, bro, that sucks. Hope it gets better. Let me know how it goes. And the third one? No reply. Just right at 10:47 p.m. It hit me like a truck. Not because they didn't help, but because they didn't even try. And this is what no one talks about. Some people are only built for comfort, not crisis. They're around when the drinks are flowing and the vibes are high, but they vanish the moment your life gets inconvenient. They love the version of you that's strong, helpful, funny, successful, but not the version that's struggling. They don't want to carry the weight with you. They want to watch from a safe distance, say, stay strong, and go back to scrolling Instagram. And here's where it gets really painful. Some of them actually believe they're good friends because they checked in once with a shallow text, because they double-tapped your sad quote post, because they said, let me know if you need anything, then hoped you wouldn't. Let's be clear, a real friend doesn't wait for you to beg. They show up, they ask, they offer. They don't need to be told what to do, because care doesn't require instructions. Now, here's the twist you won't like. Sometimes the people who don't show up for you are the very ones you always showed up for. And that realization is brutal. It forces you to look in the mirror and ask, have I been giving loyalty to people who only give proximity? You see, people like to appear loyal, but when it comes to sacrifice, time, money, emotional support, they pull away. Suddenly they're busy. Suddenly they don't know what to say. Suddenly they're quiet. And if you confront them, they'll make you feel guilty. They'll say, you're being too dramatic. I didn't know it was that serious. Why didn't you just ask more clearly? Because they don't want to admit they failed you. They want to flip the script, make it your fault. That's how they protect their ego while abandoning your pain. The harsh truth is this: being present when someone's in pain is a test, and a lot of people fail it. They fail it because they were never really there to begin with. They just stuck around for the benefits, the good times, the ease. The moment life demands depth, they vanish. So what do? You remember. You remember who showed up. And more importantly, you remember who didn't. And you stop pouring your soul into people who only sip from it. You stop breaking your back for people who won't even lift a finger for you. Because when life gets dark, you don't need 100 names in your phone. You need 2 or 3 souls who would drop everything to sit beside you in silence. Everyone wants to be around when the sun's out. But pay attention to who brings you a blanket when the storm hits. That's real love. That's real loyalty. That's who you keep. 4, they use fake vulnerability to gain sympathy. This one's going to sting because society teaches us to always listen to people's pain. But what happens when that pain isn't even real? What happens when someone fakes vulnerability just to manipulate your emotions? Let me say something controversial. Not all vulnerability is honest. Some people cry on cue. Some people bleed stories that never actually happened. And some people weaponize their wounds to get what they want: attention, validation, forgiveness, or power. I learned this the hard way. There was a guy I once mentored. Let's call him Aaron. Smart, charming, but always a victim. Every time he messed something up, missed deadlines, ghosted responsibilities, or disrespected people, he had a story. His ex was abusive. His parents didn't love him enough. He had anxiety, depression, trauma, burnout, insomnia, ADHD. He wore labels like armor, and every time someone held him accountable, he poured his vulnerability on the table like a guilt grenade. And it worked. People let it slide. I let it slide. Because we're wired to believe that when someone opens up about their pain, it's genuine. It feels cruel to question it. But sometimes, it's not vulnerability. It's strategy. Here's the truth. Real vulnerability doesn't come with emotional blackmail. Real pain doesn't seek to control others. It just wants to be heard. But fake vulnerability is different. It always shows up when the person is about to lose something. Your respect, your help, your trust, and suddenly, they're going through something. They just need you to understand. They can't be blamed right now. It's not that they're broken, it's that they've learned how to look broken so you won't walk away. They've realized that if they play the victim, they can avoid consequences. They know if they cry enough, people will excuse their behavior. They understand that pain, when performed well, becomes a shield against accountability. But let me tell you something real. I've met people with real trauma, people who were abused, abandoned, neglected, silenced, violated, and guess what? Most of them don't talk about it loudly. They don't cry in every conversation. They don't bring it up every time they're called out. You want to spot the fakers? Watch when their vulnerability conveniently appears. Only when they're about to be confronted. Only when you're about to walk away. Only when they need a favor. Only when you've had enough. And here's the darkest part. They're not just lying to you. They believe their own act. They've rehearsed it so many times it feels real, even to them. They'll cry with no tears. They'll shake with no fear. They'll tell stories with just enough tragedy to get your heart involved, but not enough detail to be questioned. This doesn't make them evil. It makes them skilled at surviving. But survival doesn't justify manipulation. Because here's what happens when you keep falling for this. You stay stuck in emotional servitude. You walk on eggshells. You give them second, third, 10th chances. You carry guilt that isn't yours. And worst of all, you start questioning your own reality. You wonder, am I being too harsh? Am I cold for wanting boundaries? What if their pain is real and I'm the one being unfair? That's exactly what they want. Doubt, confusion, emotional guilt trips. So here's your lifeline. You can have empathy and still have boundaries. You can care for someone and still walk away. You can say, "I'm sorry for what you've been through, but that doesn't give you the right to hurt me, lie to me, or use me." Not every sob story is sacred. Not every emotional outburst deserves protection, and not everyone who appears vulnerable is honest. Real vulnerability is quiet. It doesn't try to control you. It doesn't manipulate your sympathy. It shows up in moments, not patterns. So next time someone cries just as you're setting a boundary, ask yourself, is this pain or performance? Because some people don't want healing. They want an audience. 5, they triangulate. Triangulation is one of the most toxic manipulation tactics out there. And yet, it's everywhere. Hidden in friendships, relationships, even families. If you've ever felt like you were constantly being compared, subtly pitted against others, or made to feel less than by someone who claims to care, you've probably been triangulated. Let's break it down bluntly. Triangulation is emotional warfare. It's when someone doesn't deal with you directly. Instead, they bring in a third person, a friend, an ex, a boss, a cousin, even a random stranger, to control you, manipulate you, or destabilize your confidence. Let me give you a real-life story. Years ago, I was dating someone who constantly brought up her ex. Not in a sad, unresolved way. In a calculated, poisonous way. She'd say things like, "Josh always made time for me, even when he was busy." Or, "I mean, you're great, but Josh was just more emotionally in tune." At first, I thought it was just clumsy nostalgia. But then I realized she only said those things after I set a boundary or failed to meet some invisible standard. It was her way of putting me in competition with someone who wasn't even around anymore. It was never about Josh. It was about control. That's triangulation. It makes you second-guess your worth. It plants doubt. It's like emotional gaslighting in 3D. You're not just battling your own insecurity. You're now haunted by some phantom ideal you're not living up to. But here's the controversial truth. People who triangulate you secretly enjoy your discomfort. They like watching you squirm. They like making you feel like you're not enough, because that gives them power. The more you feel insecure, the more you try to prove yourself. The more you try to prove yourself, the more control they have. And it doesn't always involve exes. Sometimes it's friends. Ever had a friend who said things like, "Sarah always understands me better than you," or "Everyone else thinks I'm right. Just ask them." Or even, "People have been talking about how you've changed." They pull in this invisible audience to make you feel small. They don't want a one-on-one connection. They want a triangle. Because in a triangle, someone always feels outnumbered. Now here's where it gets deeper. Triangulators hate direct conflict. They'll never tell you how they really feel to your face. Instead, they'll go around you. They'll vent to mutual friends, make vague social media posts, talk to others about you, but never to you. Because if they talk to you directly, they lose the upper hand. And what's even darker, some of them will pit you against someone else just to watch you compete for their approval. They'll compliment someone else in front of you. They'll overshare with another friend just to make you jealous. They'll constantly compare people to keep everyone fighting for a seat at their table. It's high school psychology, but in adult clothing. And here's what hurts the most. You start thinking you're the problem. You start wondering, am I not interesting enough? Am I overreacting? Why do I always feel like I'm being benched for someone else? That's the poison of triangulation. It makes you question your value. It keeps you in emotional limbo, and that's exactly where they want you. But here's the truth that sets you free. Healthy relationships don't need triangles. They don't rely on outside validation. They don't compare, compete, or play people against each other. In a healthy connection, if someone's upset, they tell you, not your mutual friends. In a healthy friendship, no one brings up how someone else treats them better. In a healthy bond, there are no third parties used as weapons. So if someone is constantly invoking others to justify how they treat you, walk. If someone uses another person's behavior to make you feel inadequate, walk. If someone tries to drag someone else into your emotional space just to twist your heart, walk. You're not a chess piece. You're not part of someone's psychological game. You're not here to compete for basic respect and human decency. Triangulation is emotional cowardice. And anyone who plays that game does not love you. They love power. 6, they copy your ideas and take credit. This one hurts differently because it doesn't always come with betrayal in the traditional sense. It comes with silence, with subtle theft, with a smile on their face while they're robbing your brilliance. Let's say it plainly. They steal your ideas and make them theirs. They observe your creativity like a hawk. They wait for you to speak first, and then, days or weeks later, suddenly your idea, your suggestion, your unique flavor is coming out of their mouth in a different room to a different audience. And somehow, you're no longer in the story. And when you say something, it's, "Oh, come on. It's not that deep. I didn't know you invented that. We were all thinking the same thing." Number. We weren't all thinking the same thing. You thought it because you heard it from me. I remember this happening with a so-called friend. Let's call her Alina. We were both building small personal brands online, sharing philosophies, stories, strategies. One night, I casually shared an entire video concept I was developing. Title, angle, hook, emotional twist. She nodded, said it was interesting. A week later, she drops my idea verbatim. Same tone, same title, same structure. And the worst part? She got praised for it. She even DM'd me saying, "I hope you're not mad. We just have similar minds." That's not similarity. That's theft in disguise. That's plagiarism wrapped in passive-aggressive friendship. Here's the deep truth that people avoid. Some people get close to you only to extract from you. They don't want to be around your mind to grow. They want to mine it. They take your originality like parasites take nutrients from a host. And they do it subtly, always under the radar. So you end up feeling crazy for even being offended. And the world doesn't help either. Because when you speak up, you're possessive. You're egotistical. You're gatekeeping ideas. But let me ask you this. If you worked hard to build a house brick by brick, and someone walks in, copies the blueprint, builds it elsewhere, and says they did it, would you not feel robbed? Ideas are currency. They're energy. And when someone constantly takes yours without acknowledgement, without credit, without even respect, they're not inspired by you. They're using you. And here's the kicker. Most of them will never admit it. They'll gaslight you. They'll say it was a coincidence. They'll act shocked. But deep down, they know what they did. They watched how you speak. They mimicked how you write. They studied your cadence, your branding, your vision, then wrapped it in their voice and called it original. And the danger is, if you let it slide too often, you become a silent factory for someone else's success. You're the brain. They're the billboard. You're the source. They're the spotlight. But here's the real message. Protect your intellectual energy. You don't have to share every idea. You don't owe your brilliance to people who wouldn't credit you in a room full of opportunity. You don't need to be generous with people who have shown you they're transactional. And if someone gets offended when you stop oversharing, good. Let them sit with their own silence. Let them realize that without you, their creativity dries up like a desert. Because the truth is, people who copy don't just lack originality. They lack integrity. They can mimic your content, your style, your voice, but they can never steal your soul. They'll always be second best in a race they weren't even invited to join. So be kind, but guarded. Be inspiring, but discerning. And never let someone convince you that your creations are common. Because if they really were, they wouldn't need to steal them. 7. Your success threatens them. Let's talk about something nobody wants to admit. Your growth will make some people hate you. Not because you hurt them, not because you disrespected them, but because your evolution exposed their stagnation. You thought they'd clap for you. You thought they'd be proud. You thought they'd cheer from the sidelines. But instead, they went quiet. They stopped replying. They started throwing subtle shade. Suddenly, your friend is distant, cold, or worse, passive-aggressively supportive. Oh wow, you're doing great. Must be nice to have all that free time. Or, you've changed. You used to be more humble. No, you didn't change. You just stopped pretending you were average. I've lived this. When I started leveling up, changing my habits, speaking differently, getting disciplined, some of the closest people around me started acting strange. One friend stopped inviting me to gatherings. Another mocked my new routines. Another literally said, "You think you're better than us now?" And that's when it hit me. Some people only support the version of you that makes them feel comfortable. The version that doesn't challenge their own laziness. The version that plays small so they don't feel like they're falling behind. As long as you stay relatable, they're fine. But the moment you start speaking differently, moving with purpose, reaching new levels, they feel exposed. Not by your words, by your example. And here's where it gets deep. They'll try to shrink you so they don't have to grow. They'll minimize your wins. They'll bring up your past. They'll question your motives. They'll remind you of your failures, just to keep you from flying too high. But understand this. That's not friendship. That's insecurity disguised as familiarity. Real friends aren't threatened by your glow-up. They're inspired by it. They don't get jealous. They ask how they can grow too. You have to stop shrinking for people who refuse to rise. Because some people loved you when you were broken, not out of kindness, but because your brokenness made them feel better about doing nothing. Let me say that again. Some people felt superior when you were at your worst. And now that you're rising, they feel small because they chose to stay the same. You'll know you're growing when the room starts to feel colder. Fewer texts, fewer congratulations, more jokes with hidden insults. Let them go. Let the silence separate the loyal from the leeches, because your success should elevate your circle, not trigger it. And here's the truth that'll sting the fake ones the most. You're not even at your peak yet. You're just getting started. And if they're this uncomfortable now, wait until they see the next chapter. So stop apologizing for your progress. Stop explaining your ambition. Stop toning down your goals to keep fragile egos intact. You didn't work this hard to stay small. You didn't overcome all that pain just to tiptoe around people's comfort zones. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them talk. Let them walk. Because the ones who are truly for you, they'll never feel threatened. They'll feel proud. If this hits you deep, It's probably because you've been there, or you're living it right now. Used, undervalued, surrounded by people who pretend to care but secretly resent your progress. But here's what you need to remember. You owe nothing to those who drain your energy. Your loyalty should never come at the cost of your peace, and your kindness should never be a weapon used against you. Let them doubt you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them walk away. Because the truth is, they were never clapping for you. They were just close enough to benefit. So protect your space, value your worth, and never, never dim your light for someone who can't handle the brightness. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next video might be the one that finally opens your eyes to the truth. Stay sharp, stay unshakable. Your energy is sacred. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it does.